Good afternoon, students and dear participants here online.
Good afternoon, sir.
It's our 20th session of our NOAS series program. So we are again here with a new topic and new guest for today's session. We have with us Mr. Amit, who has been assistant professor from Women's College of Arts and Commerce in Nagpur, and he has been a research scholar as well from Nagpur University. And he will guide us on the topic milestones in English literature. So, what are the milestones that every scholar of literature will come across? Will be discussed by Mr. Amit, and he will discuss for coming 1 hour. So I hope all of you will keep pace with him. And in case you will have any question in between, please put your questions in the chat box so that we will ask him afterwards. So I request and welcome to Mr. Amit on behalf of our committee for organizing this NOAS series. So welcome and please
Thank,
comment your section.
thank you so much, sir. Dr. Pramod, sir, thank you so much. Uh, shall I proceed?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amit Titre from Women's College of Arts and Commerce, Nagpur. And today we will discuss about the literary gems by Nobel laureates who received Nobel Prize from near about 2006. We have selected very few Nobel laureates for this presentation or for this guest lecture particularly, and I have selected their works, which plays prominent role in bringing reformation in the society, and the Swedish Academy also in their agenda mentioned that they only select the work which contribute in social reformations, cultural, political, as well as many other reformation in the world. So we will discuss, first of all, we will discuss about the Alfred Nobel. Uh, as a child, Alfred Nobel dreamed of becoming a writer, but his father had other expectation of him, like many other fathers. Our father also, our parents also expect something else from us, and we do something else. So,
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
hello,
Slide, slide show running.
what's that?
Your PPT is running. Click on slideshow.
Okay. Thank you. So, as a child, Alfred dreamed of becoming a writer, but his father had other expectation of him, like other fathers or parents also, and his brothers. So, but the dream of Alfred Nobel was different from what his parent or his father especially expect from him. So he was deeply indulged in social reformation. He was a noble-hearted, kind-hearted, and generous too. Um, and what was his contribution in the history that made him capable to give this particular award on his name? So Alfred Nobel invented dynamite, and during his life, he managed to earn a lot of money from this invention. He invented dynamite, and from this particular invention, he received a lot of money from this particular invention, and from this invention, the amount of Nobel Prize is given to the Nobel laureates. And what was the will of in this particular PPT? We will discuss what was the will of Alfred Nobel. So he was died on 10th December in 1896, and you can here see the picture of his will, which is written as entitled as the Testament. And according to the will of Alfred Nobel, a yearly prize should be awarded in 5 categories basically. First one is physiology or medicine, which also contribute in uh, curing the ailments and many other disorders in the human beings as well as in the animals. Physics, chemistry, literature, and peace. These are the broad categories in which the Nobel is awarded to the great personalities who significantly contributed in this particular spheres. In the field of physiology or medicine, in physics, chemistry, literature, and peace. And it should be what was the condition the put forward by Alfred Nobel was it should be rewarded to those who shall have conferred the greatest benefit to mankind. So he has written that the Nobel Prize should be given to only those persons who significantly contributed for the welfare or the betterment of human beings as well as the entire world. So this was his will, and he hoped that the money or this particular prize should be awarded to only those persons who are working for the welfare or betterment of the people throughout the world. Prize award ceremony. It is widely known as Nobel Day, and it is commemorated on December 10th each year. The prize consists of a medal, a diploma, and a sum of money. Sweden King Carl XVI Gustav presents the medal and diploma to each laureate at Stockholm Concert Hall, and it is given at the Stockholm Concert Hall every year. And this particular prize consists a medal, a diploma, and some of of money, and it is given in the Stockholm Concert Hall. So we will shortly discuss a few of the Nobel laureates and their works, which significantly contribute in changing or bringing metamorphic changes in the society. Literature is considered as the medium of reformation. Many literary artists, through their work, prominently focuses on bringing metamorphic changes in the society or reformation in the society. Not only in the society, but also in the cultural, religious, political, social space of the world. The first Nobel laureate is Kazuo Ishiguro, and his work is The Remains of the Day. It is very renowned work all over the world, and you must read this particular word as it and sorry. The Swedish Academy, while citing why they are going to award Nobel Prize to Kazuo Ishiguro, they have cited the reason behind awarding Kazuo Ishiguro with Nobel Prize is that the novels of his novels, Kazuo Ishiguro's novels, is of great emotional force, has great emotional force, uncovered the abyss beneath our illusory sense of connection with the world. The themes of Ishiguro is most associated with memory, time, and self-delusion. So he prominently deals with Kazuo Ishiguro prominently deals with the memory, time, and self-delusion. How people are uh, dreaming within a dream. They have discussed it. Sorry, Kazuo Ishiguro discussed this particular theme in the Remains of the Day. He has he shed light on the memory and how people are indulged in memory and how according to the passage of time they sometimes remember the incident and how they feel uh, how they feel nervous by that particular memories. These all conditions are precisely depicted by Kazuo Ishiguro in The Remains of the Day. Kazuo Ishiguro's moving portrait of the perfect English butler, his loyalty and his fading insular world in post-war England. So he systematically deals with the post-war conditions in England and how the protagonist of this particular novel is a butler who is too loyal towards his patron. At the end of his 3 decades of service at the Darlington Hall, Stephen embarks on a country drive during which he looks back over his career to reassure himself that he has served humanity by serving a great gentleman, but sometime lurking in his memory are doubts about the true nature of Lord Darlington's greatness. So he is suspicious about his service, whether he has served for good or not. So he is in doubt. It is an ambivalent nature that he is sometimes he is considering that he has worked for uh, he has worked loyally, honestly, but sometimes he doubted over the greatness of his master or his patron, whether he is really great or not. So it is ambivalent nature, and this ambivalence is precisely discussed in this particular novel by Kazuo Ishiguro. And in this particular novel, the protagonist is uh, on the mind of protagonist. The memories are the past memories are hovering on his particular mind, his mind, and he's he doubted on himself that whether he has done something good or not, or whether his master is really good or not. So you must go through this particular novel. It is very enchanting. The language of this particular novel is too good. You can experience uh, picturesque illustration in this particular novel. So I am requesting you to go through this novel. The second literary gem is Chronicles, Volume 1 by Bob Dylan, whose real name is Robert Zimmerman, who received Nobel Prize in 2016. The Swedish Academy awarded Dylan this. The Swedish Academy awarded Dylan the 2016 Nobel Prize in Literature for having created a new poetic expression within the great American song tradition. While writing or composing songs or poems, he juxtaposed biblical as well as a religious aspect in his poem and give it a modern touch. It was not conventional or traditional type of poems. He composed uh, his poems uh, with his guitar, give it a particular rhythm and bring religious aspect in his poems. That's why it reveals folk American tradition. It also helps us to get the folk literature through the poems of Bob Dylan, and these poems are very captivating. It enchants us. It has remarkable preciseness, and it is very rhythmic poems, and many singers have composed a song on these particular poems. Bob Dylan's captivating autobiography, Chronicles, follows his experiences in New York City and his brief global concert tours as he pursued a career as well as his own artistic identity through music. So, question is that why he has composed song, why he has given a modern touch to this particular traditional folk songs. So he wanted to create his own artistic identity. He was not an ordinary artist. So that's why he had given modern touch to the poems that he has composed throughout his life. So the artistic identity lies behind the composition of this particular poem that is entitled as Chronicles Volume 1. Folk music, especially at the forefront of Dylan's storytelling. However, Dylan also introduces biblical allusions and religious connotation by gradual degrees throughout his writing, allowing the readers to discover a new angle of this remarkable artist. So, two things are important in this particular lines, in these particular 3 lines, that he introduces biblical allusions and religious connotation. Religious connotation means he mixed or intermingled these two aspects in his writing and form his own new type of identity as an literary artist. He never wrote poem as per the traditional, as per the conventional writers, as per the rules, and he opened up the frontiers and wrote something different that makes that compelled Swedish Academy to give him or award him with Nobel Prize. Chronicles appears to represent more than a genre of music or even Dylan himself. It is many critics think that it doesn't resemble with a particular genre because he has mixed music, literature, as well as biblical elements in his poems. That's why he is a remarkable artist. He is different from those artists who composed poem earlier. That's why he was continuously running behind forming a new identity as a literary artist who mixed music, who used a different genre in his compositions. Dylan's convictions are described throughout the Chronicles as being his unorthodox methods of incorporating religious theme and biblical language into his music and discovering that he had greater purpose than playing the guitar, harmonica, and singing as a mode of entertainment and nothing further. So, as we have already discussed that the Swedish Academy only offer Nobel Prize to those who has significantly contributed in upliftment or betterment of the people or the humankind. So he was not only not confined himself merely to the guitar, harmonium, and singing. Apart from this, he prominently focuses on religious theme, biblical language, music, and other aspects in a particular platform. That's why by mixing these all elements, he he composed his poems meticulously, and that's why Swedish Academy offered him the Nobel Prize because he significantly contributed in American song tradition, basically song tradition, and he unveiled various new aspects. He gives new dimension to the American song tradition. So you must go through the Chronicles, Volume 1. I will request you um, to go through it and read it. It is available on the net also. Then there is another author who is Svetlana Alexievich, who won Nobel Prize in 2015 for second-hand time. The Last of the Soviets is his remarkable piece of literary art, and uh, while giving Nobel Prize to Svetlana, the Swedish Academy announced that her polyphonic writings describe them as a monument to suffering and courage in our time. So her writing depicts the suffering and courage during the wartime, and she has described precisely or illustrated meticulously the wartime situation, the suffering of people, and the courage of the people during the contemporary period. So Svetlana Alexievich, the Belarusian writer whose oral histories have recorded thousands of individual voices to map the implosion of the Soviet Union, has won the Nobel Prize for Literature. So what is her significant contribution that made the Swedish Academy to give her Nobel Prize? So she has recorded recorded the opinions of many people, thousands of number of people, numerous people during throughout his lifetime. And by doing so, she recorded the suffering, pain, sorrows in the life of people during that contemporary period. How people are suffering from the many issues in the contemporary era. These all aspects are recorded by Svetlana. That's why Swedish Academy offered her a Nobel Prize for her for recording uh, the voices of individual voices of the people who are suffering from the pain, sorrows, and miseries throughout the world. The magnum opus and the latest work from Svetlana Alexievich, the 2015 winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature, is a symphonic oral history about the disintegration of the Soviet Union and the emergence of new Russia. So she has systematically recorded the symphonic oral history. We have already discussed that she has recorded thousands of individuals, their voices, their sufferings, their pain in that contemporary era. And it became a oral history of that particular era about the disintegration of Soviet Union and the emergence of new Russia. It was the transitional period, and she recorded it systematically by recording the individual voices during that particular period. It was the transition period from Soviet Union from the emergence of new Russia. So for recording such voices, the Swedish Academy offered her the Nobel Prize. And when the Swedish Academy praised her for inventing a new kind of literary genre, describing her work as a as a history of emotions, a history of the soul. So by recording the voices of the people, she is not only recording the voices of people, but also she was recording the history of their emotion. Okay, so she recorded the history of emotions of the people who were going through the pain, who were suffering uh, from the pain, and it was done by heart. That's why their soulful feelings are recorded by Svetlana, and it is bring forth bring forth before the world, and that's why the Swedish Academy compelled to offer Nobel Prize to Svetlana. Alexeyev's distinctive documentary style, combining extended individual monologues with a collage of voices, records the stories of ordinary women, men who are rarely given the opportunity to speak, whose experiences are often lost in the official histories of the nation. So even history is biased. Sometimes we as a professor, we as the scholar, we as a human being must know the fact that we should unearth the sideline aspect of the history. What Svetlana Alexievich has done in his life, in her life, she has unveiled the sideline histories of the oppressed people. उन्होंने जो जिन लोगों का हिस्ट्री मेन स्ट्रीम हिस्ट्री में ये नहीं किया जाता, कंसिडर नहीं किया जाता, she has give voice to that particular history, which were which is sidelined by mainstream historian, but she has precisely recorded the voices of these people, and it become history of that particular transitional era. And that's why the Swedish Academy offer her Nobel Prize, because it was not an ordinary act to record the voices of individual, to record their emotions, to record their feelings. It was not an ordinary work, and especially during that transition period. So by recording the miseries, pain, and sufferings of the men and women during that contemporary era, who were sidelined, who were never even, uh, uh, who had been never given a chance to speak. So he gave voice to the voiceless people. That's why he significantly contributed in bringing forth the history, which was sidelined by the mainstream historian. As a scholar, we should also try to unearth these type of aspects in our research also. Then when she recorded the voice of the people, which were sidelined in the histories, they were taken as or considered as a part of the history of Russia, and that's why Svetlana is considered as remarkable artist in the history of literature. So I'm requesting you to go through her work that is entitled as The Second and Time, The Last of the Soviets. The Last of the Soviet is a subtitle because it was the transition period, and then it was the emergence of new Russia. That's why it is subtitled as The Last of Soviets. Then Dora Bruder is a character in the history. It is written by Patrick Modiano, who received Nobel Prize in 2014. And what was his significant contribution in the field of literature? So, the Swedish Academy praised Patrick Modiano for the art of memory, with which he has evoked the most ungraspable human destinies and uncovered the life world of the occupation. So, he, what he has done, he has unveiled by using the art of memory. He unveiled how the ungraspable human destinies he has unearthed in this particular work, or his other works also. Patrick Modiano's work center around subjects like memory, oblivion, and identity and guilt. So the dominant theme of this particular author, Patrick Modiano, is memory, oblivion, identity crisis, and guilt. The city of Paris plays central role in his writing, and his stories are often based on events that occurred during the German occupation of France during World War II. So it was the World War II period, and the brief history of that particular events or the contemporary era is precisely discussed in this particular novel by Patrick Modiano. What was the circumstances and conditions prevalent during that particular era, and uh, how people were suffering from the war, and what were the aftermaths of the war. These all aspects are discussed by Patrick Modiano in Dora Bruder. Patrick Modiano opens Dora Bruder by telling how in 1988 he stumbled across an ad in the personal column of the New Year's Eve 1941 edition of Paris Soir, placed by the parents of 15-year-old Jewish girl Dora Bruder, who had run away from her Catholic boarding school. The ad sets Modiano off on a quest to find out everything he can about Dora and why, at the height of German reprisal, she ran away on a bitterly cold day from the people hiding her there. So it was the real life incident. A girl named Dora Bruder, who was 15-year-old, and basically she was a Jewish girl, ran away from the Catholic boarding school, and Patrick Modiano find an advertisement in the newspaper, and by uh, reading that particular advertisement, which was given by her parents, it was a missing advertisement of Dora Bruder, and Patrick Modiano read it, and then suddenly an idea stuck in his mind, and he started writing, started unveiling the hidden aspect of Dora Bruder's life, and he visited many places to trace the life of Dora Bruder. He visited her parents, and he visited many offices. We visited that Catholic boarding school, and unveil the hidden aspect of Dora Bruder's life, and uh, intermingle the war situation and Dora Bruder's life systematically. It means he juxtaposed two elements. First one is war circumstances or warlike condition that were prevalent during Second World War, and Dora Bruder's personal life. These two elements are precisely juxtaposed in this particular novel, and he was just trying to create the identity of Dora Bruder. So identity is also a dominant theme in this particular novel. He finds only one other official mention of her name on the list of Jews deported from Paris to Auschwitz in September 1942. So Patrick Modiano finds her name on an official letter, and it was the list of Jewish people who were deported from Paris to Auschwitz in September 1942. So in every way, he was trying to create an identity of Dora Bruder, and he was trying to infuse that identity in his novel Dora Bruder, and he systematically analyzed the life as well as the war situation in the France, how German occupied France, and what was the aftermath of war, and how circumstances or conditions were prevalent during that period is systematically discussed in this particular novel. It is a picturesque novel. It gives the detailed description of the war situation during that contemporary era, and we come to know that how people were suffering from, especially Jews people were suffering from the pain and sufferings, how they were deported, how they were exploited during that period is systematically explained in this particular novel. So I request you to go through this particular novel. Then there is Alice Munro, who won a Nobel Prize in 2013, and his dominant work is Dear Life. The Swedish Academy praised Alice Munro uh, by citing that we give her the Nobel Prize for Literature because she is the master of the contemporary short story. If you have read Alice Munro, I think you will understand it better. So the Swedish Academy consider her as a master of short stories. Dear Life stories by Alice Munro delivers a correct collection of stories that makes ordinary existence seem extraordinary, from the costly nature of first love to the literal cost of small town affair to the love between two strangers who are perfectly unsuited for each other. So what she has made an ordinary incident, she has transformed an ordinary incident into extraordinary one. We generally think incidents that are happening around us, we take it lightly or commonly. We don't have generally people don't have that perspective to look at that particular incident as an as a form of art. But Alice Munro was an artist who look the common incidents and give it a touch of uncommon. So he turns ordinary incidents into extraordinary one, and that's why he is considered as master of contemporary short stories, because by unveiling common incidents which are common to ordinary people, but she systematically, by her language, she systematically convert it into extraordinary one, and she was adroitly depicted all these common incidents in extraordinary way. So it was her talent which compelled Swedish Academy to give her Nobel Prize. Suppose with Munro's clarity of vision and her unparalleled gift for storytelling, these tales about departures and beginnings, accidents and dangers, and outgoing and homecomings, both imagined and real, paint a radiant, indelible portrait of how strange, perilous, and extraordinary ordinary life can be. So, I have already told you that she has capability to turn common incident into uncommon one. So walking by the road or driving on the road, we witness many accidents. Hmm. we consider that it is too ordinary for us. But for Alice Munro, it is not ordinary. He systematically converts it into an extraordinary one. She has remarkable talent and expertise in this type of particular art of converting an ordinary incident into extraordinary one. That's why Swedish Academy gave her Nobel Prize in 2013. Next, Sandalwood Death by Mo Yan, who won Nobel Prize in 2012. The Swedish Academy praised him for merging folktale, history, and contemporary life with his expertise in hallucinatory realism, or we can term it as magical realism, which is extensively used by Salman Rushdie. So what he has done, he has systematically merged folktales, history, and contemporary. It is the rarely found combination in the literary sphere. I must tell you that it is the rarely found combination in the literary sphere of the world, because he has intermingled folktale, history, as well as the contemporary life in his work. That's why Swedish Academy offer him 2012's Nobel Prize. Mo Yan's writing cover a wide span from short stories to novels to essays. His earlier works were written according to the prevailing literary dictates of the ruling regime. Over time, however, Mo Yan's storytelling began to seek out his own more independent paths. So he was writing the short stories in independent path, though there were restraints on the people of the concerned country, but still he manages to write the stories as well as other literary genres uh, in his own independent way. His work include Hong Gaoling's Jiazu, Red Sorghum, the Garlic Ballads. Garlic Ballad is also a famous one. Life and Death are wearing me out. His narrative style bears the hallmark of magical realism. Mo Yan's writing often uses older Chinese literature and popular oral tradition as a starting point, combining these with contemporary social issues. It means that he has meticulously combined reality, history, as well as uh, the fiction in a, and give it a unique form. That's why Swedish Academy offer him the Nobel Prize, because combining real life situations or conditions, uh, then juxtaposing history into it is not an ordinary task. It is too arduous to combine these all elements in a particular work. That's why the Swedish Academy offer him Nobel Prize, and he also bring forth the oral tradition of China and give it a realistic touch in his work. Then there is Great Enigma, the new collected poems by Thomas Transtromer, who received Nobel Prize in 2011. The Swedish Academy, while praising him, said that Thomas Transtromer, because through his condensed, translucent images, he gives us fresh access to reality. So he meticulously unveiled various realistic issues in his condensed and condensed words. He has been called a master of mysticism who often presents a dreamlike consciousness in which time slows to allow for dissection of the relationship between inner self and the surrounding world. So most of the Transformers poetry collection are characterized by economy, concreteness, and poignant metaphors. So his use of words is too economical. And in that economic use of word, he conveys lot of meaning through it. And he satirizes many social follies that were prevalent in the contemporary era through his poem, The Great Enigma. And he has shifted towards an even smallest format and higher degree of concentration. Initially, he was, from the beginning, he wrote, he economically used the words and convey larger meaning through it. And then he's gradually decreased or concentrated the use of word and tried to convey larger meaning from it. It is known as aphoristic style also, which is extensively used by Francis Bacon in his essays. The similar use of word, similar style means aphoristic style is also used by Thomas Transtromer in his poems. Death, history, and nature are the common themes in uh, in the works of Thomas Transtromer. Then there is Mario Vargas Llosa, who received Nobel Prize in 2010 while honoring Thomas Transtromer. Sorry, Maria. There is a correction. It is not Transtromer. It is Mario Vargas Llosa, for his cartography of structures of power and the trenchant images of individual resistance, revolt, and defeat. So he meticulously unveiled the individual resistance, revolts, and defeats. So he gave voices to the voiceless people, to the history of the sidelined revolts, rebellions, and the people, the resistance of the people against their oppression. So he gave voice to the voiceless people who were resisting for their rights, who were revolting for their rights, and how they uh, tried to form their own identity by rebelling or by resisting the oppression. Maria Vargas Llosa is one of the great Latin American storyteller, a master of dialogue, who has been searching for the elusive concept known as the total novel and who believes in the power of fiction to improve the world. So he used his fiction as a medium to improve or the reform the world. He criticized the social follies that were prevalent in the contemporary world and raised various issues through his literary works. Llosa is a divinely gifted short storyteller whose writing touches the reader. He is one of the big authors in Spanish-speaking world, Peruvian writer and one-time presidential candidate, Maria Vargas Llosa, a chronicler of human struggles against the authoritarian power in Latin America. So he was against of the authoritarian rule in Latin America, and he stood against it and rebelled against it. And this aspect of his own lives, we can witness in his works. There are many his works which reflects his autobiographical elements. Then there is the Hunger Angel, which is written by Herta Müller, who received Nobel Prize in 2009. The Swedish Academy described Herta Müller as a woman who, with the concentration of poetry and the frankness of prose, depicts the landscape of the dispossessed. She prominently focuses on the life of dispossessed people, how they are going through the pain, how they are suffering from the pain or miseries. These all aspects are described by Herta Müller in her works. In her work, The Hunger Angel. You must go through it. Muller is noted for her work depicting the effect of violence, cruelty, and terror, usually in the setting of Socialist Republic of Romania under the repressive Nicolae Ceausescu regime, which she has experienced herself. So, some biographical elements also described by the author in this particular work. Uh, he described violence, cruelty, and terror by the Socialist Republican of Romania. So she unveiled her own experiences in the contemporary world, and she precisely explained it in this novel, which is entitled as The Hunger Angel. Many of her work are told from the viewpoint of German minority in Romania and are also depiction of modern history of the Germans in the Banat and Transylvania. So she realistically portrayed the modern history of German minorities in Romania country, and especially in the regions like Banat and Transylvania. So, how the German minorities were living in that particular era is precisely described by Herta Müller throughout his literary pieces. Her much acclaimed 2009 novel, The Hunger Angel, portrays the deportation of Romania's German minority to Soviet gulags during the Soviet occupation of Romania for use as German forced labor. So, how German minorities were deported from Romania for the forced labor, the condition of laborers, German minority laborers, is described in this particular novel, and she also unveiled various aspects of the people who were deported from Romania and how they were forced to for labor and how they were suffering from the miseries there is described in this particular novel. Then there is 2007 Nobel Prize winner Doris Lessing, whose work Prisons We Choose to Live Inside is a remarkable one. The Swedish Academy described Doris Lessing as that epicist of the female experience who, with scepticism, fire, and visionary power, has subjected a divided civilization to scrutiny. So, she titled her Nobel lecture on not winning the Nobel Prize and used it to draw attention to global inequality of opportunity. So he highlighted the issue of inequality of opportunity. Hmm. How people are deprived of the opportunities is described by Doris Lessing in her work. Generally, serious and didactic Lessing's fiction repeatedly urges the human race to develop a wider consciousness that would allow for greater harmony and less violence. So, she was believer. She believe in non-violence and harmonious relationship among the human beings. So, she was the supporter of or the champion of non-violence, and we can get the idea of non-violence and harmonious relationship among the human beings through her work entitled as Prisons We Chose to Live Inside. Although known particularly as a master of realism, Lessing is often experimental or deliberately fantastic, as shown her science fiction novels. She has also written a science fiction novel. She didn't confine herself to a particular genre, and she experimented science fiction also. Her interests are far-ranging from Marxism. Initially, her writing were on Marxism, as she was the ardent philosopher of Marxism, and she has influence of Marx on her. And we can witness the influence of Marxism on her literary works at the initial stage of Doris Lessing. Then My Name is Red, which is written by Orhan Pamuk, Orhan Pamuk is, I must tell you, Orhan Pamuk is famous for intertextuality, which is the term extensively used during postmodern era, and Julia Kristeva use it extensively. And similarly, Orhan Pamuk is the person, he is a writer who use this device, literary device, throughout his novels. My name is the Swedish Academy described Orhan Pamuk as an author who, in the quest for the melancholic soul for his native city, has discovered a new symbol for the clash and interlacing of culture. So he discovered the new aspects of the clash between cultures. That's why Swedish Academy offer him the Nobel Prize of 2006. This novel is set in Istanbul in late 1590s. The book is a philosophical thriller about stirring murder mystery. The other theme of novel are love, artistic devotion, and tension between the East and West. So, so he precisely deal with, though he is considered as a postmodern artist, but still he uh, prominently deal with the issue of uh, post-colonialism. Uh, he has systematically unveiled the dispute between Orient and Occident, East and West. So it is the clash of civilization. So through this, My Name is Red, through this particular work that is entitled as My Name is Red, he described the clash between the civilization East. He described the clashes between East and West. How West is considered superior and it treated East as inferior one. It is systematically described by Orhan Pamuk in his work. Pamuk's novels are characterized by the search for identity in the borderland between Western and Eastern values, and attempt to understand the differences and similarities and ambivalent yearning for both modern and old traditions. So he prominently focuses on the borderlands between Western and Eastern, because there is ambivalent nature among these borderland people, because they are not completely accepting the foreign culture or the host culture, and they are not completely living their own culture. That's why there is ambivalence, cultural ambivalence, in fact. And how there is identity crisis in doing so by adopting the host culture, and but living by not living their own culture. They are living ambivalent life. These all aspects are precisely discussed by Orhan Pamuk in his novels. A Sorrow Beyond Dreams, which is written by Peter Handke, who received the Nobel Prize in 2019. The Swedish Academy cited that for an the Swedish Academy awarded Peter Handke for an influential work that, with linguistic ingenuity, has explored the periphery and the specificity of human experiences. Among Handke's most important themes are the uses of significance of language. He prominently worked on the systematic use of language in his work, the analysis of abnormal psychological states of the people or the human beings, and the nature of writing process itself. So he prominently deals with the three aspects. First one is the language, and then he analyzed the abnormal psychological states through his works, and then he also elaborates the nature of writing process itself. Since then, his novels have continued that extraordinary life work of discovering human existence with forensic analysis, writing about all the manner of subjects and attempting to explain them to us. So by forensically analyzing each and every human experiences, he meticulously infused these experiences, these human experiences, in his works. If you read Sorrow Beyond Dream, you will get to know it. The dominant theme of his writing is that ordinary language, everyday reality, and their accompanying rational order have a constraining and deadening effect on human beings. So, how everyday incidents made impact on the lives of uh, human beings is precisely or effectively described in his work. The next work is The Triumph of Achilles. It is composed by Louis Gluck, who win Nobel Prize in 2020. I'm just going to sum up it fastly. The Swedish Academy held Louise Gluck for her unmistakable poetic voice that with austere beauty makes individual existence universal. So she prominently focuses on or stress on the existence or the identity of individual. Every human being is important in the world because they contribute as per their level in the process of making history. So every individual plays significant role in shaping the history. That's why what she says that every individual, every human beings plays significant role in shaping history. That's why Swedish Academy compelled to give her Nobel Prize. Louis Gluck's major themes are universal, covering life and death, nature and history, desire and isolation. These all themes are dominantly or extensively used by Louis Gluck in her work. Gluck reimagines ideas about family and friendship, about myth and legends, both Greek and biblical. So he meticulously intermingle reality as well as the myth in her novels, as well as other literary genres. The voice of Gluck's poems reassures us that poetry isn't and never has been explanatory at heart, but can become a wonder of spirit and symbol touching love, passion, loss, and suffering without romanticizing those large subjects. So, Louise Gluck never romanticized the subjects. She meticulously deal with it and she maintain the level and never romanticize it, never uh, uh, propagated it at higher level, and she describe it realistically. Whether it is love, passion, loss, or suffering, she systematically deal with it and never romanticized it, and that's why for depicting the realistic life incident throughout his poetry. Uh, the Swedish Academy considers her worthy of Nobel Prize and offer her Nobel Prize in 2020. And last one is The Memory of Departure, which is written by Abdul Razak Gurna, who recently received Nobel Prize in 2021. The Swedish Academy praised Abdul Razak Gurna for his uncompromising and compassionate penetration of the effect of colonialism and the fate of the refugee in the Gulf between cultures and continents. So uh, it is the work of Abdul Razak Gurnak prominently deals with the aftermath of colonialism. Uh, he prominently stresses that the colonialism hasn't ended it. It is still prevalent in the because many government are oppressing their subject by various type of imposing various type of taxes and many other. So he stresses that the colonialism has not ended yet. It is still going on because many people are suffering or ruled by though it is a democratic countries, but still the people of that particular democratic countries are suffering from the pain, miseries, and the leaders of that particular countries are how repressing the people of that particular country is systematically stressed or elaborated in his articles, many articles by Abdul Razak Gurna, and he unveiled the sideline aspect of the colonialism. What were the impact of colonialism is discussed by Abdul Razak Gurna in the Memory of Departure, and that's why by depicting the life of refugees in Gulf countries, systematically compelled Swedish Academy to offer him Nobel Prize. Most of his novels tell stories about people living in the developing world affected by war, crisis, who may not be able to tell their own stories. So he unveiled the sideline aspect of the developing world, how people are affected with the war or the terrorist attack, and how the crises are prevalent, are still prevalent. If we know the issues of Palestine and Israel conflict, Iran and Iraq conflict, Moro conflict. If we go through it, we come to know that the crises are still prevalent. The colonialism is still prevalent in the disguised form. So Abdul Razak Gurna unveiled various aspects of colonialism through his literary work. The writings of Abdul Razak Gurna are dominated by the issues of identity and displacement, and how these are shaped by the legacies of colonialism and slavery. So, how the issues of identity and displacement are still prevalent in the modern world is systematically described by Abdul Razak Gurna in his novels, and how the countries are following the legacies of colonialism and slavery is meticulously described by Abdul Razak Gurna in his novel. That's why Swedish Academy praised him and offered him the Nobel Prize. In this way, we have discussed many authors who significantly contributed in the literary sphere of the world and endeavored to alter the face of society and made some significant contribution in the field of literature. That's why I have selected this topic, and I have briefly introduced with some of the prominent authors who significantly contributed in this field of literature and endeavored to bring metamorphic changes in the society by through their literary works, whether it is poetry or novel or short stories. They have endeavored to bring changes in the society, alter the nature of society, and that's why Swedish Academy offer them Nobel Prize. At last, thank you so much for patiently listening me, and I request Vaibhav sir to proceed.
Thank you, Amit sir, for the wonderful session. I think first of all, you stop screening and then turn on your cameras. Thank you, Amit sir, for the informative and wonderful session about the Nobel laureates. And your session is always beneficial for our students. Now let's move towards the question answer session. and two questions for our students. And the first one is what types of impact on literature by Nobel Prize?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yes, sir. What types of impact on literature by Nobel Prize?
Okay. Thank you for the question. I don't know who placed this question, but it is a really amazing one. Nobel Prize made impact on the literary, not only on the literary sphere, but also the other sphere also. It inspire or motivate people or the literary artists and many other people who are working in the innovative field to invent something new, which contributes significantly in the many sphere, whether it is literary or any other sphere. It motivates them. This particular prize motivates them to experiment new styles in every sphere, whether it is literary, whether it is physics, chemistry, math, or any other sphere. It inspires them to work on innovative work in innovative way and give significant contribution in the to the world, which will help them, which will help human beings to overcome the difficulties in which they are facing in their life. So basically, the main motive behind this particular prize is to motivate those people who are who believe in innovation, who believe in inventing new things in their life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Another one question is from our students. Which are the awards called prestigious awards in literature?
There is a Man Booker Prize also. Many of the author received Man Booker Prize. So it is also one prestigious prize, which many other the people like the author like Indian author like Arundhati Roy receive for his God of Small Thing. So this is also another prize which is considered as most prestigious one in the world.
Okay, thank you, Mr. No one response from our students. Now let's move towards to the last session or last phase of this session. I propose the vote of thanks behalf of my HOD, Dr. Vivek Joshi. He engaged in the another work in university. Thank you, Amit sir, for valuable information about Nobel laureates and their uniqueness in the literature. Sir has explained the history of Nobel Prize in Literature and its historical background with the development in literature as well as societies. Sir, your session is informative and beneficial for our students. Your presence and contribution always motivates our students. In future, we will tie up with another session on English literature. Behalf of our HOD, Dr. Vivek Joshi, I propose the thank you, Amit sir, for the wonderful session in Noise series. Thank you, Amit sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amit sir.
Thank you, sir.